Welcome back for Linguistics Podcast listeners. This is the podcast for Friday, February 22nd, 2013. I'm Lee Ballard, and I'm here today with Luisa Daigneault from the Living Tongues Institute for Endangered Languages. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, it's really nice to be here with you, Lee.
So, we're here in this coffee shop. Can you tell us a little bit about the work of Living Tongues?
So, Living Tongues Institute is a non-profit research organization, and we focus on documenting endangered languages. So languages with very few speakers left, and or languages where there's an aging population of speakers and they want to revitalize their language. It was founded by two linguists, Greg Anderson and David Harrison.
Okay. I think that these linguists were also featured in a movie called The Linguists, right?
Yeah, they were featured in a documentary film called The Linguists, and it followed them in several different countries, working with different speakers, doing field work, language documentation, making some of the first ever recordings of endangered indigenous languages. So I encourage you all to look up The Linguists online and check it out.
How many languages out there are endangered?
There's well over 2,000 languages that are currently endangered. And so there's a lot of documentation that needs to be done in this current generation to help those languages survive into the future.
So this is a critical situation. This is a key moment.
Yeah, I would say that one of the biggest impacts is for the communities of speakers themselves. Losing their languages and losing an important part of their identity and their culture. Even if they don't pay attention to the problem now, it's a painful impact later on when the language has been lost.
Right, because it's a lot harder to revitalize than it is to work on a language while it's still spoken by native speakers.
Exactly. The impulse for revitalization has to come from the community of speakers themselves, who have a desire to keep their language alive and keep it being transmitted from the older speakers to the new speakers, you know. It can be a difficult process depending on how it's perceived by the speakers or by outsiders or by semi-speakers, everything. So there's a lot of localized problems that can surround endangered languages and why they're disappearing and why it's hard to revitalize them.
And one of the things we were chatting about before is the project of talking dictionaries. Can you tell us a little bit about what a talking dictionary is and why it's used by linguists and communities to do language documentation work?
Yes, Greg Anderson and David Harrison have kind of spearheaded this movement towards creating talking dictionaries, which are online tools that are basically interactive dictionaries for endangered languages to hear the correct pronunciation of the word. So every time a new word or phrase is uploaded into the talking dictionary, also an audio file is uploaded, which was recorded with a fluent speaker, so that a new learner who is using the talking dictionary can hear the word being spoken and not just read the word and its translation into the dominant language, but also have a really good representation of what it's supposed to sound like.
Oh, that's a fantastic idea, because when you have to use phonetic script, you can avoid the whole problem by just recording an audio file.
Absolutely, and we do have one of the parts of the spreadsheet associated with these talking dictionaries is for phonetic transcription. And multiple people can listen to the audio file and try to get to the most accurate transcription possible. So definitely transcription for languages that have been very underdocumented, it can be a very difficult process,
Okay. And one of the language hotspots would be Papua New Guinea, is that correct?
That is correct. There's over 830 documented languages there.
Wow.
Well, recorded languages. And many of those have never been documented properly. So it's a hotspot of diversity, and it's also a hotspot of endangerment, because many of these languages, they've never been written down. There's no alphabet for them. There's no audio recordings. There's no materials available for the people, if they're losing their language. Right now, we're fundraising for talking dictionaries in Papua New Guinea. Our goal is to create 12 new talking dictionaries for endangered languages spoken in Papua New Guinea. So we're fundraising on Indiegogo. We'll put the link in the description of the YouTube video so that you can donate to our fundraising project for Papua New Guinea.
And you were just recently in Chile and Peru, correct?
Yes. I was in Chile with a group of indigenous activists and accompanied by Greg Anderson, the founder of Living Tongues. And so we had 12 Indigenous activists from 7 different countries, and we created 9 new talking dictionaries with them, each for their own language. So we taught them how to record the words and phrases, and how to do the data entry into a spreadsheet and upload them online. So basically do everything they need to create their own talking dictionary and continue to expand them in the future.
Great. So it's about empowerment of those speakers from the communities themselves to go in and analyze the language from the point of view of the native speaker, right?
Absolutely. It's from the grassroots. It's digital skills are, the best way to teach these young language activists to create their own materials and their own databases and everything they need, because a lot of them are teachers and studying linguistics, some of them, and others are community activists and hope to make their own films, hope to make their own websites and everything.
Great.
So making their own talking dictionary is really empowering for them.
That's fantastic. Now let's talk about 2 upcoming events. There's Mother Language Day, and also a little bit later on in June and July, there's the Smithsonian Folklife Festival in Washington, D.C. What can you tell us about those 2 events?
Yes, so this week we are celebrating International Mother Language Day, February 21st. It's a UNESCO day for celebrating language diversity around the world and encouraging people to develop more educational tools for all the minority languages. So their emphasis this year is on children and education and creating more books in minority languages, more publications. So we think that our talking dictionaries fit into that scope.
And that's the key, right, to having a language continue on into the future, is for younger generations to pick it up and begin using it.
Yes, and in our perspective, digital technology helps us to be able to get closer to that goal.
Great. Well,
online.
It's a wonderful thing to celebrate this week. And what can you tell us about the Smithsonian Folklife Festival?
Everyone is invited to the Smithsonian Folklife Festival in Washington, D.C. It takes place at the end of June and the beginning of July. There will be a special whole wing of the festival dedicated to endangered languages and cultures. So we're super excited for that because at the Living Tongues Institute, in collaboration with National Geographic, our project, the Enduring Voices project, has been one of the key players in getting endangered languages into the Smithsonian Folklife Festival, in collaboration with several other organizations as well. So I encourage you all to look up online One World, Many Voices at the Smithsonian Folklife Festival and to come hang out with us in Washington, D.C. in the summer.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. And while we're at it, what's the website for Living Tongues?
www.livingtongues.org, and you can find us on Facebook and on Twitter as well, and we post daily updates about all our research and people doing language activism around the world.
That is great. Where do you see endangered languages moving forward, and what is the importance of continuing that process of revitalization and of strengthening languages in order to counter the pressures that they're under?
We believe that mother tongue education is really important for everybody. We are big advocates of multilingualism and for people to retain the linguistic part of their ancestral identity. We believe that multilingualism is an important part of humanity, and that everyone should retain their indigenous languages and not give them up. And so we see that the current generation is very important for documenting and promoting and preserving these endangered languages, because it's through the efforts of young people and young speakers working with older speakers, young scholars and old scholars working together to create a change for the situation of endangered languages, to help them not disappear and to create more access for future generations.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Anna, for sitting down with us today.
Thanks.
It was a pleasure chatting.
I want to say thanks to everyone at Florida Linguistics. It was a pleasure to meet Lee Ballard here today and to talk with you.
Thank you for joining us today. This has been the podcast for February 22nd, 2013. Make sure to check out floridalinguistics.com for more information and livingtongues.org. Thanks again, and see you again soon.